And good evening, sports fans, and welcome to a brand new episode of Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Tonight, we'll be taking our usual broad look across the DMV landscape. We are actually going to start with a little bit of ongoing disappointing football news as the Ravens just cannot seem to stay out of their own way this offseason, not only with the Justin Tucker incident that we discussed, but also a new incident that has arisen to put a dark cloud over top of the great city of Baltimore. We will then move to hockey and basketball, where both of our teams, the Caps and Lizards, they still get the L this week, have returned from their all-star breaks. And honestly, the returns could not have been more appropriate given the way their seasons have gone so far. We're going to talk about how that game went for the Caps against the Penguins today, and we're going to talk about how the game went for the Wizards against the Bucks last night in Kyle Kuzma's return to DC, and also Chris Middleton's first game with the Wizards since that trade. We also take a look at spring training as both the Nationals and Orioles had their first spring training games of the year. Results are results. They played the game. There were stats, but we'll talk about my actual feelings about the results here. Then, of course, we'll jump into the college ranks where we're really getting down to the nitty-gritty of college basketball. The men's teams and women's teams are really gearing up for that final push for March Madness. We're going to look at where our teams stand, and also take a look at how our softball and baseball teams have started the season. Some pretty good stuff out of a couple of these schools, but how's everybody doing? We are going to see. All while continuing our theme of Black History Month with a truly special beer from a truly special brewery. We've got all that and more coming up on Let's Whine About DMV Sports on the IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sport.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop, including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Once again, shout out to all of our sponsors, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky that's truly on another level. Go to planetjerky.net to order some today, a wonderful snack for any sporting event. Also, Vital Apparel, a great brand. Do be sure to use code IESR to get 15% off to make your purchase, which also helps them on their journey to supporting mental health research. Great cause there. Seal the Deal Wax Seals, custom seals, the perfect touch for your special event. Do check them out on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax seals. Of course, follow us on all social media. And also, shout out to our newest sponsor, Raw Nutrition Supplements. Get rawnutrition.com. All different kinds of supplements for you, not just protein, any other vitamins, necessities you need for a good workout, for good recovery, for good general health. Use promo code IESR there as well. You can get 10% off of your order. Once again, that's getrawnutrition.com. And of course, follow yours truly at letswine_IESR on X. And also do be sure to go to our supporters club today to help support the show and the station. All of you viewers are greatly appreciated. We love having you here, and whether you're listening live right now or later on the week, we love it all. We appreciate it all. Thank you guys very much. We have a ton of sports to get into today, but first, of course, we must start with our beverage of choice. Now, we are continuing our theme of Black History Month, and slight schedule update. Next week is going to be a little bit weird because March 1st, of course, is the Saturday, as we do our shows on Saturdays. However, I did miss a week here of the month of February, so I do want to get one more of the Black History Month beverages in there before the end of the theme. So this is not the last. There will be one more next week, and then we'll start with our following theme, which is actually a DMV theme. We're going to get to that next week, but we are going to continue our theme with a Black History Month, and this month we are celebrating a woman by the name of Celeste Beatty, who was the first Black woman to own a brewery, that brewery being Harlem Brewery out of New York State. So Celeste, also an avid soul food chef. So if you go to Harlem Brewery's website, I believe it's just harlembrewing.com. Actually, I have it pulled up on my phone. I can verify that. But if you go to her website, not on the very front page, you get a list of different soul foods, beer-infused soul foods to be specific. So do be sure to check them out at harlembrewing.com. And they have a bunch of different beers that they offer. They have a golden ale that they call their Sugar Hill Ale. They also have their Renaissance Wit and their Queen Stout. They also have a couple of collab beers as well. Not a super old brewery. They haven't been around for a very long time, but they're definitely gaining traction and definitely becoming really popular. And today we have their 125th Street IPA, and they actually have a little write-up on it, not on the can, conveniently, but they do have a little write-up on it online. A refreshing hip-hop aroma of citrus and spice, a nutty malt sweetness with everything nice. Interesting. They're going with the flow here. Hop forward, upbeats, layered, earthy, fruity notes with a chorus of flavors. Discover the soul of Harlem, a living history and culture for more than 200 years. That's 125th Street. 7% alcohol by volume. It is one of their flagship beers. So, of course, wait, hang on. Let's see if we can get the noise here. Great little crack here. So I am familiar with Harlem Brewing's products. I did used to sell them often at Total Wine. Actually, it was while I was at Total Wine that they were first introduced to these shelves on Total Wine. I believe it was back in 2019, maybe 2020. A really friendly group of people, really excited, very enthusiastic. They did tastings, I think, once every other week for like the first 2 months they were there. It was incredible. But yeah, so this is a 16-ounce can of 7% alcohol by volume, so you got to be a little bit careful with this one. 7%, a little bit above your normal beer range. Let's get a little pour going. I'll go ahead and go with the full glass. Now, of course, with it being 16 ounces, it will not fit beautifully in the glass. There's going to be a little bit left over there. Also, not the greatest pour on my part. Look at that. That's kind of pathetic looking head on that beer, but it is what it is. I've done it. So it's got kind of that golden amber color you would expect to see. Actually, a little bit darker and hazier than your traditional IPA. This calls it a juicy pale ale on the can. I don't think the online description really had much in terms of juiciness. Let's see. Smells like an IPA. Smell that hoppy pininess. I mean, that is a very dominant flavor that you will get out of most of your typical IPAs. If you recall, several months back, we kind of did an IPA taste test, kind of going down the different styles. A lot of them have a very similar aroma, just kind of that hoppy, piney, almost grassy upfront note there. But of course, it all comes down to the taste. So let's give it a taste. Very well balanced. Normally with IPAs, the very first thing you get is this kind of strong hoppiness. It almost tastes like you're biting into a leaf. But that is not the case. This one eases you into the flavor. A little bit of a dry hop finish. Not a ton up front, which is good. It eases you in. It doesn't, hit you with a ton of flavor. Sometimes it can be tough to really get into a beer when the very first thing you get is a punch of flavor in the face. So it's good that they are. It's good that they kind of ease you in. Your first taste isn't a very strong hoppiness or a very strong kind of juicy fruitiness, which a lot of IPAs, kind of the juicier, the hazier ones, you get hit with kind of this almost sour fruit flavor up front that can almost be off-putting. So this does not do this. This is very well balanced. Yep, tastes great. Not too strong, not too overpowering. Much easier drinking beer than a lot of IPAs tend to be. A lot of them tend to be too strong, too overpowering. That'll put off your average beer drinker. This is not the case. This is more of your every beer drinker's IPA. Not that I'm saying people that don't like IPAs will like this. It definitely still has some of those qualities, the aromas, the dry hop finish that I mentioned. But for people that like IPAs, don't love them, and don't love all of the complexities, this is your casual IPA drinker's IPA. They don't need any of the super fancy stuff with the 18 different kinds of hops from 5 different regions. None of that stuff. This is a simple IPA. This is a well-made IPA. This is a good IPA. So well done, Harlem Brewing. Shout out to them once again. Go to harlembrewing.com and not only check out their beers, but check out some soul food recipes as well. And by the way, each of their beers has a soul food pairing list to go along with it, so do be sure to check that out. Before we hit our quick break, I did want to touch on a couple of kind of sour notes here in the DMV. We've got more bad Ravens news for this offseason. More allegations have come out against Justin Tucker. 7 new accusations. I think that brings the total up to 16. He's getting very close to Deshaun Watson level stuff. So that is definitely not good. Very curious to see how the organization handles this situation because there are financial implications from just outright releasing him unless the team were to go through the arduous process of appealing to the league for some type of relief given his situation. So we'll see how that goes. But then also, soon to be free agent guard Ben Cleveland had a DUI earlier last week. Ben Cleveland's been on the team for 4 years. He was a 3rd-round draft pick back in 2021, and he never quite locked down a starting guard spot that many of us expected him to, although he seemed to play well for stretches. So I don't know what it was about him that he couldn't get into the starting lineup, but now he's entering free agency. The team wasn't expected to bring him back to begin with, and now I'm sure with the DUI, that expectation has been lowered even less. It also kind of hurts him, from signing a deal, which he was already a long shot to get a good contract because he just did not have a ton of starting experience, not a ton of tape on him. Now he's definitely going to be in the 1-year minimum prove it deal with this plus his play. So that's unfortunate for him, and just a rough offseason for the Ravens continues with more unfortunate allegations. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are going to jump into some more positive news. Do not go away. You're listening to Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Cleveland and Columbus sports fans, I've got the show for you. I'm Jen B, host of the Show of the Land right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. You want football? I've got the Browns, the Buckeyes, the Eagles, the Purple Raiders, and more for you. You want basketball? I've got the Cavs and the Charge for you. You want hockey? I've got the Blue Jackets and the Monsters for you. You want football, aka soccer? I've got the Crew and the Crunch for you. You want volleyball? I'm going to unleash the fury for you. You want more Cleveland and Columbus sports? I've got them all for you, from the majors to the minors to the college rinks. Catch me, Gen B, every week on the Show of the Land right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sport.
What's up, Wisconsin sports fans? I'm Dan, diehard Baholic, host of the Wisconsin Whistle. Check us out every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. We're talking Green Bay Packers, Milwaukee Brewers, Milwaukee Bucks, Marquette basketball, Wisconsin football and basketball, and all Wisconsin sports. Don't miss us each week, Wednesdays, 6 p.m. on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
How we doing, sports fans? This is Christian Harvey, your host of Gritsville, USA, your go-to show for all things Detroit and Michigan here on IE Sports Radio. Whether you're here for Gritty Lions talk, getting pumped up for the great Detroit sports renaissance, or hating on your neighbor depending on if they were green or blue, we got you covered. Whether you're in the East, West, or Central, we got you covered. Join me as we tackle through all that the great state of Michigan has to offer in the world of sports. Catch me, Christian Harvey, each week on Gritsville, USA, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's get into some positive sports news. So we're going to start with the Caps and the Wizards, both coming back off of their all-star breaks. The Caps returned in phenomenal fashion, defeating the Pittsburgh Penguins 8-3 today. 5 second period goals for the Caps. Every defensive player scored points. In fact, 4 of them, Chekrin, Roy, Sandin, and Favory, scored double-digit points today. And every Cap who played, aside from the goalie, Logan Thompson, solid performance by him, by the way, every Cap that played recorded a point except for Nick Dowd, Lars Eller, and randomly enough, Alex Ovechkin did not score a point, but everybody else scored at least a point. Phenomenal showing by the team, and not all in the power play. Only a couple of those were power play goals as well, so 6 even strength goals, I believe, in that one. Player of the game, Pierre-Luc Dubois with 3 assists and +3. He had the most points and was tied for the team lead in plus-minus. So that's a great way all around for the team to come back off of the All-Star break, which was actually pretty long. Their last game was like 12 days ago. So that's a tall task to have such a gap, and especially with the Four Nations, which, by the way, congrats to the NHL for finding an exciting, enticing All-Star game formula, which every other league in professional sports appears to be lacking. A good All-Star game formula. So congrats to them, because that was phenomenal to watch and great hockey all the way around. Of course, with the fact that this is our only game, Ovechkin record watch, no goals today, still sitting at 879, still has about 26 games left to get 16. So still time left in the season for him to break it. I hope he does break it. I think there'll be a lot of great fanfare. And that would be great. Well, like second to last game of the season, he breaks the record, as the Caps clinch the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. I can see some really fun headlines coming out of that one. Busy schedule upcoming this week, 4 games all at home, so that's very advantageous coming off of the break. Today's game against Pittsburgh was in Pittsburgh, but then they return home for games against the Oilers, Flames, Blues, and Lightning. Oilers a very solid team, Lightning a very solid team, Flames are kind of in the middle, and Blues are a little bit lower. So kind of a mixed bag, not a cakewalk schedule, but all 4 games at home definitely gives the Caps a really strong advantage. And the game against the Lightning obviously going to be key, as the Lightning are a key competitor in the Eastern Conference. And every time you can beat a Eastern Conference competitor that is relatively close, not that there's a ton of teams directly challenging the Caps at this moment, but anytime you can gain a few extra points on these guys, is going to be advantageous. So hopefully that's probably the most important game of the 3. But I mean, this is, like I said, at home, reasonable way to return to hockey as you hit to the final third of the season, which I guess would have officially been today, really would have kicked off the final third of the season. So hopefully this can get them that momentum, because before they went on break, actually last week, we discussed their keys for the second half, and it was going to be regaining that momentum and carrying it the rest of the way. So hopefully this is not a bad schedule to do that. So hopefully they'll be able to get that done. Flipping on the other side, we have, well, the most depressing team in DC right now, and that is the Lizards. I put Wizards on the thing, but with a 5-game losing streak, I think the L needs to come back into the name, guys, with the Washington Lizards as they return from break and they lose to the Bucks 104-101. They actually had a pretty interesting fourth quarter comeback and had the ball with like 5 seconds to go, down 3. Chris Middleton, who was just brought over in the Bucks trade for Kyle Kuzma, was actually the one to take the final shot. Unfortunately, he missed it. So the Lizards fall in this one 104-101. Normally, I would not do, say, a player of the week in the losing streak. However, it was just one game, so we got to give a shout out to somebody. And I'm going to go with rookie Alex Sarr, who had a career high 22 points, 7 rebounds. He hit 4 threes. In fact, he and reserve wing Corey Kispert each hit 4 threes. The two of them combined were 8 for 17. The rest of the team was egregiously bad from 3. I think it was something like 4 for 16 or something like that. It was really bad shooting all the way around. Only a couple guys scored in double figures, but Sarr and Kispert off the bench both had really solid games. So at least give a shout out to the guys that are still trying. But like I've said time and time again, this is a team, and even after the trade deadline where they add in Chris Middleton and Marcus Smart, it's still a team full of B-, C+, C players, and unless everybody's firing on all cylinders, teams like that do not win many games unless it's a favorable matchup, which, looking at the schedule coming up, it's not impossible. Only one of these teams has a winning record. That's the Magic. Portland and Charlotte and the Nets are all kind of teams that are in the bottom third of the league. So this is not an impossible schedule for the Wizards to maybe pick up their 10th win of the season and lose and end this losing streak. I don't think it happens against the Magic, which I believe that game happens tomorrow. home against the Nets in Portland, I could see them getting one of those, or at Charlotte, who they actually have had Charlotte's number this year, which is odd to say for a team with 9-46. That's for them to have anybody in the league's number, but they do have one probably, and that's Charlotte. Also Atlanta when they got those 2 wins earlier in the season. But if the Wizards lose these 4 games and we return next week and they're still the Lizards, I mean, they might not even get that 10th win of the season. Okay, that's a bit of an exaggeration. I think they'll get the 10th win. And it'll be interesting to see down the stretch, and we'll actually review this as we get to that point in the season. I put a poll out amongst my IE Sports Radio colleagues asking who would win more games this year. And this was about midway through, maybe end of November, when the Commanders, actually, I think probably mid-December, when the Commanders had really started to pick up steam. And I asked the question, who is going to win more games, the Commanders or the Wizards, which is an absurd question to ask because the Commanders, including playoffs, played in 20 games this year, and the Wizards have 82 on the schedule. So you think it's ridiculous to think that the Commanders would get more wins in 20 games than the Wizards will in 80. However, if you include the playoffs, which was only fair, just to add the game numbers up, the Commanders got 14 wins. In order for the Wizards to tie the Commanders, they would have to go 5 and let's see, we're at 9-46, which means there's 27 games left. They'd have to go 5-22, which is about their pace right now, give or take. Right now, their pace is on average in a 26-game stretch 4-22. So they're pretty much right around that area, but it's a bit. And by the way, this is including a 3-game winning streak that they had 2 weeks before the break. So they won 3 games in a row. You take that 3-game stretch out, they're 6-46 in the other 52 games, which is just absurd to discuss. But will they be able to get those 5 wins to at least tie the Commanders? And by the way, this is an absurd conversation to be having to suggest that a basketball team with 82 games on their schedule cannot get to 14 wins. And yet here we are having this conversation about the Wizards. If they get to 14 wins and only 14 wins, they will have the number 1 odds because right now all but 2 other teams in the league have at least 14 wins. So the Hornets have 14 exactly. I believe it's the Trailblazers are one of the other 2. Hang on one second. I know the Jazz are the Western Conference team with 13 wins. They're one of them, and the other one is... Oh, I think it's New Orleans, the Pelicans. Yep, I guessed it before I looked. So Charlotte has 14. The Hornets and Utah each have 13, and it's asinine to believe that the Hornets will not get one more win to stay at 14, and that the Hornets and the Jazz won't get 2 more wins in their last 20-some-odd games to get to 15. So 14 is a great number for the Wizards because they get the number 1 pick odds. In fact, I would say best case scenario for the final stretch, and I don't know why this is 7-20 feels very clean in my head. So 16 wins, I would say, is probably the best case scenario for this team at this point. So we just need all of those other teams to get to that 16-win threshold, or need to get to 17 wins. So Hornets need to win 3 of their last, let's see, the Hornets are like 14-40. So 3 of their last 28. The Pelicans are 13-42, so they need to win 4 of their last 27. And then the Jazz were 13-40. They played some fewer games, so they need to win 4 of their last 29. And if none of those teams can do that, then they've absolutely tanked hard enough to deserve the number 1 pick odds anyways. And we also, in the last little bit of professional ranked news, we'll leave the Commanders alone this week. They haven't really had much to talk about, which is good at this stage of the game. Not a lot of drama. Of course, they're being tied to virtually every free agent under the sun because of their general roster needs and their cap space availability. They've also been linked to Myles Garrett very heavily in trade possibilities. But overall, we'll leave the Commanders alone. Spring training, we had our first round of games for the Orioles and Nationals today. The Orioles lost 10-5 to the Pirates, and the Nats lost 6-3, or once beat the Astros 6-3. And I can tell you, neither of these numbers mean anything to me, in all honesty. Not that I don't like baseball, but spring training, it's got such little bearing on the actual results of the season. The only thing I didn't love in the Orioles game was that it was Albert Suarez that got the start, and he did not have a great game. And Suarez is one of our emergency options if one of the projected starting five is either injured or not pitching particularly well. He's kind of the first option. Cade Povich is another one, and Brandon Young, another one of their options. Chase McDermott already has a lat strain, and he will probably be slow to return. And then there's also Trevor Rogers, who I have been hoping would never sniff Camden Yards grass again, but push comes to shove. If something happens and he's the last option, I guess, it's better to actually have a pitcher on the mound than a position player, although Kobe Mayo did throw 97 in high school. So I'm just saying, push comes to shove, maybe Kobe Mayo, if he's on the roster, could come in and cover a couple innings for us. But I'm not worried about any of these games. This is game one. It's like being worried about the first game of a 162-game season. It is, unless the trends and the patterns start looking really bad, like maybe Gunnar Henderson, who went hitless today, doesn't get a hit all preseason. That might be concerning. Maybe, if players are just not doing very well at the plate and the pitching keeps getting shelled, okay, I might start to have concern in about 2 weeks. But for now, one loss, no big deal. First spring training game. I am unmoved. And same with the Nats win as well. I'm not going to look at the win and go, yeah, we're winning the World Series. No, absolutely not. That is not going to happen here. That will do it for the first sports segment of the show. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to cover some college sports before we head out for the evening. Do not go away. You're listening to Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's happening, sports fans? Are you a fan of Southern California sports? Are you looking for a show hotter than a hot summer day in California? Then look no further than the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where I talk about all things Southern California sports. That's right, all sports teams from Southern California. From the hard-hitting tackles of the NFL, to the killer crossovers and big three-pointers of the NBA and WNBA, to the grand slams of the MLB, to the bone-chilling goals of the NHL, and to the booming kicks of the MLS. The SoCal Supreme Sports Show has it all for you. Oh, and let us not forget about the college sports as well. So join me, Taryn Rodriguez, every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, Pittsburgh? This is Ralph Galise, the host of the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Are you that passionate diehard Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, or just a Pittsburgh sports fan? Then please join me on the Injury Report every Tuesday on IE Sports Radio, the direct feed for all that is sports, and I will update you on all that's black and gold, and have you telling your Pittsburgh fans and friends what's up with Pittsburgh sports. Tune in Tuesday with me, Ralph Galise, the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's go!
Hello, everyone. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr., and I'm welcoming you to Take Another Lap with the fastest show on IE Sports Radio. Yes, this is the Extra Mile with me and my co-hosts Christopher Lehman and Michael Ward. We talk everything racing from NASCAR to IndyCar to Formula One to limited hydroplanes, endurance racing, the NHRA, and more. So come join us for an hour of great racing talk and a lot of fun as well on the Extra Mile, Thursdays at 8 p.m. only on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to Let's Mind About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We are entering our final segment of the evening, which of course we have to check into our college sports, where there's a pretty good amount of stuff going on right now. We're going to start with our college basketball check-in, which is obviously, we're less than a month away from Selection Sunday, which I believe is going to be March 16th this year. That feels about right. And given how many games everybody's played, everybody's in the upper 20s, I think we probably only have maybe a week and a half-ish of regular season games left before we get into the conference championships. So where teams are at now, unless they're on the bubble, is probably where they're going to finish, barring a miracle, but that's why they call it March Madness, right? So we're actually going to go school by school as opposed to men's and women's, because interestingly enough, they all kind of align. So we're going to start in Maryland. Both men's and women's teams are doing great. 21-6 overall, both ranked. I think Maryland's men's team is 20 and the women's team is 21. So both ranked, both looking good, unless they have just absolute utter collapses. Like I'm talking lose maybe their last 4 or 5 games of the regular season and do absolutely nothing in the Big Ten postseason tournaments. They will be in their respective NCAA tournaments. Now, obviously, seeding is still a big deal. 21 seed, you're looking anywhere from a 4 to a 6 reasonably in the brackets. 6-4 might be a little high. You're looking probably 5 to 6. And then, of course, your championship, your postseason championship run is going to influence that up or down. So, if either of these teams, let's say they go 24-7, 24-8, 25-7, something like that in the regular season, stay around that 20 mark and then win the Big Ten postseason championship, they would probably get a 4 seed, maybe even a 3 seed, depending on who they beat along the way. But either way, I do think both Maryland teams will be in the NCAA tournament. It's just a question at this point of seeding. Again, unless, the world were to collapse right out under their feet and they lose out or they have really rough ends to their season, which might drop them to bubble teams. But even then, there's still a really good chance that they both get in. Really love what Maryland is doing. Probably one of the most balanced starting fives I have seen. All 5 of their guys are in double digits. They have different leaders for points, rebounds, and assists. Different guys play good defense. Different guys are 3-point shooters. So I'm really impressed with Maryland's men's team starting 5. I think the last time they had such a balanced starting 5 was 2002 when they won the championship. Not saying they're going to win the championship this year, because those guys were not only balanced, they were also all-American caliber players. But in any case, I digress. Good job, Maryland teams. Keep it up. I think like I said, they've done enough at this point to be virtual locks for the NCAA tournament. Now, University of Virginia's teams are on the opposite side of the spectrum. At this stage in the game, if you have a losing record, you need to win your conference championship to get in. Even if you win out, there's just no way. So that's the only hope for Virginia's teams. Really disappointing for the men's teams, usually pretty competitive, but this year has just not been their year. Like I said, losing record, just not playing good basketball, and same with the women's team as well. So I do not expect to be discussing University of Virginia in either tournament. Heck, I'm not even going to say NIT at this point. I think there's just finish out the season, try to win some games, but your only hope is going to be winning your tournament. If they win out and have deep postseason tourney runs, then sure, NIT bid probably. But other than that, you're not looking at anything. And I think based on the way both of these teams have played, that would be pretty far-fetched to have those as expectations. But weirder things have happened. That's why they call it March Madness. Now, Virginia Tech is split. The men's team is in a losing record. They're in the same boat as University of Virginia, and you need to win the whole thing or you've got no shot. But the women's team is still fighting. They're at 16-10 with a good ending to the regular season and a strong postseason tournament run. Not necessarily winning it, just a good one, maybe making the semifinals or the championship, which is not going to be easy to do in the ACC. I could see them getting an at-large bid as a bubble team, but both of those things have to happen. You can't have a strong finish and then a weak postseason tournament. Ergo, consequently, if you have a weak finish, you're going to need to win the tournament. So that's really how the cookie will crumble for the women's team. But the men's team, like I said, same boat as University of Virginia. They are done and done. Other DMV schools to note, George Mason's men's team has actually gotten votes to be top 25, and then Richmond's women's team in the same vein. Now, on the men's side, smaller conferences can get at-large bids. It's a little bit rarer for them to do that, but if you're getting votes to be ranked, that's certainly a good thing. That would put you somewhere in the, like, say, 26 to 33 range for the rankings, which you would expect if you're a top 33 team in the nation, you would expect to make it. There aren't enough small school conference champions to bump that many teams out of a 68-man tournament. So Richmond or George Mason's men's team might be able to earn themselves a bubble bid without even having to win their conference tournament. Now, winning the conference tournament would be a good way to clinch that. But if they keep playing the way they've been playing and they keep racking up wins and getting national recognition, then I think they could be a kind of an under the radar sneaking in as maybe an 11 seed, a 12 seed kind of the last, or maybe earn one of those play-in games where they randomly have like two teams battling out for an 11 seed or a 12 seed. I could see that being a scenario for George Mason as well. Now, on the women's side, there's a little bit more flexibility. So Richmond women's team getting votes, again, it's a little bit more common for a team like Richmond to get a NCAA tournament bid as a at-large. Now, it's kind of still similar principles. They still need to keep playing well. They're still probably, say, like somewhere around 30-ish in the rankings. And the women's tournament is smaller, I believe, unless they changed it really. And they might have changed it, so don't quote me on that. But in any case, yeah, I mean, in both cases, look, guys, just keep doing what you're doing. Clearly, you've gotten the attention of some of the press, and that's usually enough to let the bracket makers have some attention as well. So keep doing what you're doing, and heck, if you win your conference championships, you're getting in. So, there's nothing wrong with that. And none of the other DMV schools, the smaller ones, actually, it's like James Madison. I forget if there's men's or women's team, but they got a couple of votes, but not enough to really make me confident that they have an at-large chance. Any other smaller DMV schools, the James Madisons of the world, Liberty, Howard, UMBC, Towson, they'd have to win their conference championships to get an NCAA tournament bid. That's basically where their scenario lies. And then going over to the baseball/softball diamond, we have a quick college baseball check-in and quick softball check-in. Maryland, Virginia, and Virginia Tech are all 3-2 to start the season, which is a bit of a surprise for Virginia, although they've had some tough matchups. They did get Oregon State, who's a very good team, last week, so that was one of their losses. So for Virginia Tech and Maryland, it's kind of par for the course. But for Virginia, this is actually, I would consider a slow start, especially considering they're number 2 in the nation in the rankings. I expect that to change a little bit, especially with some of these other teams, Oregon State, Florida State, some of these other, Tennessee, some of these other teams that are further down the rankings with really hot starts. I think that Virginia might drop. I'm not saying their season's over because they still have like 50 games left or something absurd, maybe more than that. So there's still plenty of time for them to recover, just not the hot start that you would expect from UVA baseball. Like I said, for Maryland and Virginia Tech, pretty on par for the course and not bad. I mean, 3-2 is better than a lot of other scenarios. I mean, look, you're 5 games in. You have how many records? You can go 5-0, 4-1, 3-2, 2-3, 1-4, and 0-5. So you've got 6 scenarios. You're at the third best. That's pretty good. Just saying. For teams with lower expectations. For Virginia, not so much. And then for softball check-in, Virginia Tech and Liberty are both ranked in the top 25. Virginia Tech 8-2, Liberty 8-3. UVA and Maryland both kind of hovering around that 500 mark, so not as hot for them. But again, kind of like we discussed last week, Virginia Tech, kind of like UVA is the cream of the crop of the DMV baseball schools. Virginia Tech is the cream of the crop of the DMV softball schools. So hanging around 500, not the worst case scenario that you could have for these schools to start the season. There are a lot worse results you can have. It was like I was talking about the Commanders. Look, when the Commanders are 7-5, I was like, I mean, shoot, they could be 6-6. They could be 5-7. They could be 4-8. There are lots of worse options that they could be, but for these two schools, hanging around the 500 mark, not a bad way to start. But you got to get the momentum going in order for it to make a difference once you get into softball World Series and baseball World Series scenarios. That will do it for tonight's show. Thank you all for tuning in. Once again, shout out to our sponsors, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Go to planetjerky.net to get yours today. Vital Apparel, use code IESR to get 15% off of your purchase of their really fantastic workout gear and contribute to their cause to helping with mental health research. Seal the Deal Wax Seals, custom wax seals, the perfect touch for your special event. Check them out at sealthedeal_wax seals on Instagram. And our newest sponsor, Raw Nutrition Supplements, go to getrawnutrition.com. Use promo code IESR there as well to get 10% off of your order. And if you have not done so, please follow us on all social media on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, all of the above at IE Sports Radio. Do be sure to check out our website, iesportsradio.com. There you will find our show pages, our blog, our merchandise, our Hall of Fame, Fan of the Month, schedules, and so much more. So do be sure to check that out. And be sure to follow yours truly at letswine_ISR on X. And do go to the link www.spreaker.com/podcast/Let's Whine about DMV Sports support to help us out and to continue to show your support for IE Sports Radio. We'll be back next week to talk more DMV sports. We, of course, will be getting closer and closer to March Madness. We'll have a lot more hockey and basketball going on. Spring training will continue, and the Combine will be going on. The NFL Combine, so we'll have to check in on some of our DMV players as well. But, of course, please remember the show's main message. Please drink responsibly. Do not drink and drive. One of my favorite social media posts regarding this topic is that you can afford an Uber or a taxi before you can afford a DUI. So please drink responsibly. Do not drink and drive. It is simply not worth it. Once again, thank you all for tuning in. This has been Mike Patt for Let's Whine About DMV Sports on the IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.